The one 15-minute phone call per month she was allowed to make to her family was denied. She was not allowed to write any letters. Her reading material was restricted. The few books that she had were taken away from her. There is a very strong suggestion, although we can't get an answer at the moment, that she's undergoing more interrogation at the hands of the FBI, and this is again without a lawyer present. And the last conversation her family had with her was that they indicated she's still in fear for her missing children. And as this says, what has been presented represents only the highlights of the human rights violations, but the importance of Aafia's case and its implications across all areas of human rights include war crimes, torture, rendition, illegal detention, the abuse of women, the abuse of children, violations of national constitutions in the US, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Suleiman is mentioned several times, and it's dangerous to speculate too much, but there is very little hope that Suleiman will be seen again. We're getting details of experiments that have been carried out on prisoners and psychological manipulations. Now then, I don't know how many of you followed the actual trial in New York, but Aafia came under criticism because she didn't want to take part in the trial. Now, I know that there's some mothers that are concerned here that they don't want their children to hear certain details, and so it's probably appropriate at this point that those children leave the room. But one of the criticisms levelled at Aafia was that she refused to take part in the court, and she didn't want to, she wasn't allowed to sack her legal team. The legal team that the Pakistan government paid for had to work under the government-appointed legal team. And so she tried to boycott her own trial because she felt she wasn't going to get justice. But the other reason she didn't want to go to court is that every time she left her cell, she had to be strip-searched. Now, to be strip-searched in an American institution, or certainly where she was held, if you resist, it means being held down by 3 or 4 male prison officers, while 2 or 3 female prison officers remove your clothes and then come on the rubber gloves and full cavity searches. I have seen the CCTV footage of this, and it is tantamount to rape. And this is what she had to go through. The rape of Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. Every day that she was taken into court, she was treated in this way. And every day that they finished with her and she was taken back, she went through the same procedure again, day in, day out. Cage prisoners started a postcard campaign, and we wrote to the judge. Hundreds of postcards were sent, asking the judge, please stop this brutal, primitive practice. And he did for a couple of days, and then he allowed it to continue again. God knows what is happening to her right now. We have no idea. That 15-minute phone call, that little window into the dark, grim world of Aafia Siddiqui a snapshot. We have no idea what they are doing to her now. And if I can just briefly go on to about the children. I told you I met Ahmed. He speaks perfect English. I'm told that his Urdu is a bit ropey. Ahmed is 12, 13, and he has a very good memory, mashallah, which was not lost on the Americans, and they wanted to take Ahmed to America. And the family tried to say no, he ought to be with his family in Karachi. And the Americans said, no, we can look after him. We have good institutions where we can counsel him, where we can medicate him. And in the end, Dr. Aafia Siddiqui appealed to President Karzai, and he intervened. And he said to Aafia, let Ahmed go to America. The institutions there are superior to anything you have in Pakistan. I'm told that he's violent, I'm told that he's volatile, that he's dangerous, that he's unpredictable. You really can't look after him. She immediately faxed through her CV, and mashallah, she has a brilliant CV. She was educated in Harvard. She's at the top of her tree in mental health care. And she said, not only am I an expert in the area where Ahmed needs treatment, but what better place for him to be treated than with his family? And Hamid Karzai actually intervened and agreed and ordered that Ahmed be returned to his family in Karachi. But right up until the last minute, the Americans tried to stop that happening and brought out another boy who they said was Ahmed. And they did DNA testing, they switched the DNA test, they did all sorts to stop Ahmed from getting back to his family. And Aafia had a phone conversation with two boys. Can you imagine the dilemma that this aunt was in? She spoke to the first boy and she tried to make him remember about his childhood, and he couldn't remember. He couldn't remember who he was or where he was from. He couldn't remember his auntie Fozia. And she spoke to the next boy, and he was exactly the same. And right on the point of putting down the phone, he suddenly said, is that? And he used a special nickname that he'd had for his aunt years ago. And she knew immediately that was Ahmed. And he's with the family, and despite some stories that have been put in the media, he is Aafia's son. But right up until the point of handing that boy over, they tried to stop him from going back to his family. Ahmed hasn't spoken yet fully about what he went through. And when he does, he will have a story to tell which I think will shock all of us. Maybe this is why, because of the trickery at the point of handing Ahmed over, maybe this is why Fozia today has greeted the arrival of this young girl with some caution. As I said before, we really need to make dua for the family. So what can we do? It's very difficult to know how we can help. What we can do, what Cage Prisoner can do, we can ask you to, first of all, write to Dr. Aafia Siddiqui. Even if she doesn't get the letters, and we don't know, we're getting no feedback at all.